I'm fluent in Latin, and here are 5 things I would do differently if I were going to start learning Latin again from the beginning. I'm Andreas, a language teacher and Latin speaker, and I help people get proficiency in languages, especially ancient ones. First, I want to debunk the myth of what it means to be fluent in a language. A lot of people, when they hear you're fluent in a language, they think you know everything about everything and speak it just as good as a native speaker. That's not necessarily true. We're talking about proficiency versus fluency. Fluency here is my ability to communicate at speed. My ability to communicate at speed at a high level of proficiency. I can communicate and express myself in classical Latin at a high level of proficiency, at a high level of speed, with a high level of accuracy. That does not mean that I know every single little thing there is to know about Latin, about grammar, about vocabulary, because no one knows that even in their native languages. We are constantly learning new things. I am learning new things in English. I am learning new things in Latin. Sed sine ferre ulla difficultate ullaque animi contentione, me ipsum exprimere possum, verbis latinis notionibus antiquis. So here are the 5 things I would do if I were starting over again. Number 1, much less of a focus on grammar and translation and much higher of a focus on meaning and meaning and meaning. What I mean by that is that meaning is the name of the game. If I want to understand a sentence, I do not need to translate to understand its meaning. I do not need to know if something is a perfect passive participle or not to understand its meaning. Translation is one vehicle to comprehension, but certainly not the only one, and often translation is one of the slower ones. Why ride a bicycle when you can drive a car? Number 2, I would be listening to Latin podcasts in incredibly high amounts. Listening to Latin content that was meaning focused was instrumental and transformational in my language learning journey and my growth to proficiency. Number 3 is I would have read a lot more novice and intermediate level content in Latin before moving on to any literature. The goal for speaking and listening to Latin is not to necessarily speak and listen to Latin, it is to help you to read literature better. Let me say it again. The goal of speaking Latin is not to speak Latin. The goal of speaking Latin is to make you a more proficient reader of literature. But so often we are told the lie that we are able to read literature after 1 or 2 years of Latin study, and that's just not true. That is with a really high level of proficiency. Now notice what I mean when I say read here. I mean read as in like read a sentence and comprehend at the same time. No translation, no need for any other materials necessarily. And by materials I mean sort of like study aids or something like that, like reading a book. So you should consume novice and intermediate reading at gigantic amounts. And when you finished it, do it again. Because tip number 4 is I would have reread so much more than I did. When I first learned Latin, again, I'm talking about when I first learned Latin, not when I first spoke Latin. When I first learned Latin, I read something, I was like, I read it, I'm done, I move on to the next thing. But really, I need to benefit from the stuff that comes from rereading. When you reread, your brain is freed up to think more about the things that are creating context than the context itself. That is, if I already know the story of what's going to happen and I have set expectations of what's going to happen, my brain is freed up to think about how things are phrased and how things are said. Basically, the cognitive memory slots that come for comprehension and meaning are freed up to be able to think about language too. So you should be rereading and re-listening to things in huge quantities. Number 5, and this is true of every skill of life, I would have stopped shoulding on myself. This is a nice English phrase. To should on oneself means I should do this, I should be this. There is no should or shouldn't. There is no you should know this or there is no I should know that. There is what you do know and what you don't know, and no shame attached. The more you say you should do something, the more shame is attached to that notion and the less you're actually going to do the thing. I should practice this. I should exercise. I should read this. Has that ever made you actually read or exercise more? Stop shoulding on yourself. Find joy in the process. Joy is going to lead the way. And that's scientifically backed, like all this advice. If you like language learning content, Latin, ancient Greek content, follow us here, leave a comment, let us know what language you're learning this year. Is it Latin? Is it ancient Greek? What are you struggling with in Latin right now? Let us know that in the comments as well. We at Latinitas Animi Causa are excited to be part of your language learning journey, and we're excited to give you resources for your learning and proficiency. Valete, Sodales.